Hey everyone, tonight we're going somewhere that's been waiting a very long time. A city sealed in ash, streets preserved, markets caught mid-morning, 81 loaves still sitting inside the bakery oven, wine still in the jars, coins still on the counter, next to goods that never sold. Pompeii has been waiting nearly 2,000 years for someone to walk its streets again. Tonight, that someone is you. Before we go any further, if this is the kind of history that keeps you company in the quiet hours, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, and leave a comment letting me know where in the world you're listening from. People find their way here from every time zone, and that never stops being a strange, small comfort. Now, dim the lights a little, get the pillow right. Tonight, we're stepping into Pompeii in the autumn of 79 AD, the city's last 24 hours. The cobblestones are still cool underfoot. The Forum fountain is still running. That steady, indifferent sound it's been making for years. The bakery fires haven't gone out yet. And Mount Vesuvius, that dark ridge along the northern skyline, is making its final preparations. You don't know that yet. Nobody does. Let Pompeii come to you from the ash. The gate is heavy. Not because of the stone itself, though it's thick enough, but because of everything that's passed through it. Years of carts and livestock and travelers and soldiers, all wearing their way into it, until the weight settled somewhere deeper than the rock. You're standing outside the Herculaneum gate, your back to the road you came in on. The sky above the city is still that particular grey-blue it gets just before dawn actually decides to show up, not dark anymore, but not light either. Just a thin brightening creeping over the eastern hills. The ridge of Vesuvius cuts a clean, dark line across the north. The autumn mountain is quiet. Olive trees and vineyards stripped of their last harvest. Leaves still on the branches, but faded now, brownish yellow, the color of something that's been slowly toasted. The road leading in is about 4 meters wide. 2 deep wheel ruts run the length of it, carved into the volcanic stone by generations of cargo wagons. Some of the grooves are finger-width deep, some are just faint scratches. You step between them, onto the slightly raised walkway in the middle, the pedestrian path, worn smooth by feet that long predate yours, and feel the texture of the basalt through your sandals. Dense, cold, unforgiving. This is stone that has absorbed thousands of years of footsteps and kept none of them. At the gate arch, there are guards, and there are vendors already setting up, and there's a cluster of mules blocking one side while their owner unloads in no particular hurry, muttering something in Oscan. You edge past, and you're in. Pompeii in October is not Pompeii in July. The summer city runs on heat and noise, and the particular suffocating reek of fish sauce drifting from one street to the next. But now it's late in the Campanian harvest season, and the air is clear, almost sweet, a faint trace of olive trees and the last ripening fruit. You've been walking for 3 days from Capua. Your leather shoes have taken the shape of your feet. The heel on one side is wearing raw under a strip of cloth you tied there yesterday. The first thing you want is to put your bags down. The streets are unmarked. Pompeians don't name their roads, they navigate by shop signs, by corner fountains, by a carving on a particular wall. You follow the main road in toward the city's center. On either side, storefronts at street level, living quarters above, whitewashed exteriors blackened by oil lamp soot. A tavern, door half open, the sound of someone talking in a low voice inside, the clink of a clean ceramic cup, a small, ordinary sound that happens every morning here. What stops you first is a water basin. Low stone trough at the corner of 2 streets. Water comes in through a lead pipe, fills the basin, spills over the edge and into the drainage channel below. You crouch down and cup a handful. Cold, a faint metal taste, but clean, the kind of clean that comes from a high source, mountain spring clean. Pompeii's water system moves water from miles away through aqueducts and pipes to every corner of the city. You've heard about it on the road. Seeing it now is something different. The water runs into the drain and disappears. From somewhere east, the first market cry of the morning cuts through. Pompeii is awake. The sign is a rooster, painted on the exterior wall in red and yellow. The red so faded now it's gone a deep brick, but the shape is still clear. Below the bird, a few letters in Latin. You recognize half of them. The rest is probably the owner's family name. You'd asked directions twice in the city. The first person pointed you east, the second person pointed you in the opposite direction. You ended up finding the rooster yourself. The innkeeper is a man in his 40s, medium build, skin the color of a good tan, hair going grey at the temples. He speaks Latin with you quickly, practically. 3 copper coins per night. Includes the bed and a round of bread in the morning. The bed is upstairs, through a narrow door off the exterior stone steps. The room is exactly what 3 coppers buys you. Wooden bed frame, rough linen, a window that looks out onto the inn's interior courtyard. You put your bag in the corner, and the frame gives a single creak old wood, well used, the kind that stopped complaining loudly and settled into something quieter. The courtyard below has a dirt floor and a few laurel trees, still green, their smell carrying up in the still morning air, slightly sharp, slightly medicinal, the scent that laurel gets when it's held onto the last of autumn's cold. Somewhere downstairs, another guest's voice, an odd accent in their Latin, negotiating something with someone. Breakfast is in the downstairs room. Wooden table, ceramic bowl, a round of bread from yesterday, a small dish of olive paste, and a cup of wine so watered down it's basically a rumor of wine. The bread is hard, you need the olive paste for it, and the wine is sour, slightly barrel-flavored. You drink 2 sips and decide to use the rest for rinsing. Nobody talks at breakfast. There are 2 other guests. One studies something on the table in front of him. The other stares at the street through the window. The morning silence is a mutual agreement. Outside, a cargo wagon rolls through it, came in before sunrise. The law in Pompeii allowing heavy vehicles only before dawn on the main streets. The wheels on basalt make a solid, rolling thud that passes through the walls. A few women walk past with baskets, fish inside, just up from the port. The smell reaches you before they do, and it doesn't soften itself for politeness. You eat the last of the bread, push the bowl aside, and drink the rest of the wine in one go. Your legs are still tired from the road, but there's also that specific alertness of arriving somewhere new, the kind that fights off sleep, that keeps your eyes moving. You want rest, and you don't want to waste the morning. Both at once. The laurel outside shifts slightly in the morning wind, then goes still. Today is late October. In Campania, this time of year hasn't turned cold yet, just the mornings have that edge to them, a light chill that burns off before noon, when the marble in the forum will be warm enough to press your palm against. You stand up, dust off the road, head for the door. Pompeii is waiting to show you what it is. You smell it before you see it. The market is on the east side of the city, not far from the forum. You're still 2 streets away when the first layer hits you. That's garum, Pompeii's most famous export, and the Roman Empire's most beloved condiment. Fish sauce, made by salting whole fish inside enormous ceramic jars and leaving them to ferment for 2 to 3 months in the sun. The smell is, look, there's no flattering way to say it. Fermented fish brine, salt and viscera and thyme. Your first reaction is to turn around and go somewhere else. But you keep walking, and within half a block the smell has settled into the background, the way harbour towns always smell like the sea once you've been there long enough to stop noticing it. Pompeii puts garum in everything: bread, vegetables, meat, wine, salt substitute, flavor base, every purpose seasoning. The city exports it in specialized double-handled amphorae all across the empire. You are standing at ground zero. The second layer is bread. A bakery 2 doors down has its oven going, and the heat wave coming out of it carries roasted grain and a faint char undertone. The round domed oven has been burning since before dawn. A row of fresh loaves is cooling on the ledge at the street-facing window, perfectly arranged, evenly spaced. The baker setting them out moves with the slow, unhurried rhythm of someone who has done this same motion so many thousands of times it's no longer thought about, just performed. The third is olives. October in Campania is the tail end of olive harvest, and some stalls have fresh-picked ones, still carrying that flat grey-green sheen straight from the tree. Break one open, and you get the raw, slightly bitter oil smell underneath. The cured ones are darker, sitting in brine or herb oil inside ceramic jars the size of buckets, each one covered with a rough cloth. Row after row of them. Pomegranates are in full season. One vendor has cut them open on the display table, the dense packed red seeds exposed, each one glistening already with the juice starting to seep. You buy one with a copper coin, pry it open with your hands, and pick out the seeds in small clusters. Sweet with that clean astringency underneath, exactly what you need to cut through the garum smell still sitting in the back of your throat. The woman selling them doesn't look up from her work. Her fingers are red to the knuckle from the juice, and not dry yet. The market runs through every kind of person you'd expect in a crossroads port city. Plain linen on the local working folk, heavier wool on traders from the north, darker skin and faster speech on the southern sailors, and here and there, white-robed wealthy men with slaves behind them carrying things. Their paths cross and recross, briefly, then separate. The geometry of a busy market. Everyone has somewhere to be, and nobody has enough time. Near the back of the market, an old man sits behind a table of late-season figs, half asleep, holding a thin stick, occasionally waving it lazily at the flies on the fruit. The figs are past their peak, the skin is starting to wrinkle, but wrinkled figs are sweeter, the sugar concentrating inside. He sees you looking, raises one eyebrow and holds up two fingers. Take it or leave it. You take it, tuck it in your pocket, and walk away with the sweetness still sitting on your tongue, layered in with the bread smell and the garum and the olive brine, which is what this market will mean to you for the rest of your life. The noise runs in every direction. The whole thing is turning. Then the colonnades open up, not one column, a whole row of them, white marble, each one about 8 meters tall, running along three sides of the forum in the crisp October morning light, one half lit, one half in shadow, the contrast almost too clean. You stop at the last column before the open space and let your eyes take in the scale. 150 meters long, 38 wide, paved in white limestone that this morning's angle of sun turns to something almost difficult to look at directly. First-time arrivals always stop here. The north end is Jupiter's temple, built up on a raised platform, wide stairs, a portico of 6 columns at the front. The pediment at the top has a crack running through it. The 62 AD earthquake left that 17 years ago, and they still haven't fully repaired it. Someone has filled the crack with lime, plaster, neat edges, careful work, but the color doesn't quite match the original stone. In today's light, you can trace the whole line of it. A few people are sitting on the temple steps, not praying, just sitting, watching the forum traffic move below like an audience at a free play. The forum is running on multiple frequencies simultaneously. Over in one corner, an official-looking man is signing something on a wax tablet while people wait beside him. A young scribe writes notes on a smaller tablet nearby, the stylus making tiny, regular scratching sounds. Under the colonnade shadow, merchants have spread out bolts of fabric and are demonstrating the quality in the light, pulling a corner of cloth into a sunbeam, letting a potential buyer judge the weave and color. A child runs full tilt across the open plaza until a voice calls out. The child stops, then runs again. There's a particular kind of echo in this space. Not the sharp bounce of a closed room, but something lower and denser, all the footsteps and conversations and the occasional laugh layering on each other and settling into a warm background hum. It holds you. You notice your own footsteps sounding slightly more present here than on the street, like the white stone floor and white colonnades are acting as a subtle amplifier, returning a little more of each sound than it borrowed. The commercial galleries under the east colonnade sell fabric, metalwork, spices. Each storefront has painted advertisements, bright-colored text on the plaster outside, bold enough to read from 20 paces. Pompeii's merchants understood something about marketing. They didn't just list what they sold. They listed the owner's name, the virtues of the product, and occasionally a veiled insult at a competitor. One wine cellar's wall reads, "Other places sell water and call it wine here. Our water is wine." You've walked past better phrased marketing in your own time. The south side holds the administrative buildings, the council chambers, the comptroller's office, doors open on all of them, people flowing in and out at that particular quick-step pace of people who have paperwork waiting. Elections, lawsuits, grain distribution, tax records. This is where the official version of Pompeii gets its paperwork done. The sundial shadow is still short. The morning has a lot left in it. You stop by the Forum fountain. Water falls from one stone tier to the next. That thin, steady thread of sound that doesn't care about the commerce or the negotiations or the child starting another sprint across the plaza. The fountain has been making this exact sound for longer than most things in this city can remember. It does not keep count of how many strangers have stood here. It just runs. You stay a while anyway. A few miles to the north, water is moving through stone. The Aqua Augusta Pompeii's main aqueduct pulls water from mountain springs and carries it along elevated channels to the city's distribution tower on the north edge of town. From there, 3 separate pipe runs branch out, one to the public fountains, one to the public bathhouses, one to private homes wealthy enough to have paid for the connection. The water pressure follows gravity, strongest near the tower, gentler by the time it reaches the farthest street corner basin. As long as the pipes hold, it flows without interruption. You notice, walking through the city, that there's almost nowhere you can stand that isn't within 200 steps of a water point. Stone basins set into the street corners at regular intervals, each one fed by a lead pipe, each one overflowing steadily into the drainage channel below. People use these for drinking, for washing, for cooling down, for the brief social pause that a shared water source seems to produce in every city that has ever had one. 2 women at a basin near the textile district, one filling a ceramic jug, one rinsing a length of cloth. They talk, they laugh. The pipe keeps running underneath their voices. The lead pipes are flexible, soft enough to bend around corners and follow the slope of the ground. The engineers who designed this system found lead ideal, ductile, rust-resistant, easy to seal at the joints. They didn't know about the other part. Nobody did, yet. The city runs on miles of lead pipe, a hidden nervous system carrying water to every quarter, and not a single person in Pompeii has any reason to think twice about it. You ask a spice vendor near the corner what he knows about the wells. He frowns. Says that last year the water to the north basins cut off for 2 days before coming back. Probably a cracked pipe somewhere. They found it and fixed it. No big thing. His voice has the flatness of someone describing the weather. He goes back to measuring coriander. There are wells too, older backup sources. But you hear, in passing, from a woman waiting at a basin, that her household well went dry yesterday. She says it like she says it every time something minor breaks down, with a shrug and the implicit assumption that someone will sort it out eventually. You cup another handful from the stone basin and drink. Still cold, still clean, faintly mineral. The best water you've had since you left the mountains 3 days ago. Your hand drips. The water finds a small crack in the stone and disappears into it. In the distance, the Forum fountain is still running. Layered with this corner basin, there's a constant, low water sound threaded through the whole city, through the mornings, through the nights. A sound so consistent most people stopped noticing it years ago. It runs under everything else, like a note held on an instrument long enough to stop sounding separate from the room. Later, much later, archaeologists excavating the Aqua Augusta will find fracture damage in the pipe system. Recent fractures. In the weeks before, small earthquakes, too frequent to count, breaking the lead at the weakest joints. But the fountains kept running. Nobody connected the cracks to the mountain. Why would they? The mountain had always trembled a little. You put your hand back into the water and let it run through your fingers. It feels like it will do this forever. The arch is low. With a worn relief above the lintel, a man drawing a strigil along his forearm. the carved stone edges softened by who knows how many passing hands. The tool and the arm have blurred together over the decades into a single rounded shape, more suggestion than sculpture now. The Stabian Thermae, Pompeii's oldest public bathhouse, operating since the 2nd century BC, expanded and renovated several times, now running in the high imperial format: changing room, warm room, hot room, cold room, men's and women's sections separated. One bronze coin at the door. One coin. In a city where 2 coins buys you bread, that's not nothing. And yet, the bathhouse fills up every day. You leave your sandals in the wall niche of the changing room, a long row of wooden cubbies, a few already occupied. Someone's shoes, someone's rolled cloth, someone's small leather purse. The walls here are painted with guides, images, helping you remember which slot is yours. Some people wrote their name in charcoal beside their niche. Others seem to rely on the picture. One name is scratched directly into the plaster with something sharp, each letter even, the kind of careful inscription someone makes during a slow, idle moment. A line below it, in different handwriting, is a slightly rude comment about someone who is probably not here to respond to it. The tepidarium first. Warm room, a transitional space. Underfloor heating runs below the tile. You feel it the moment you step in, rising through the soles of your feet. Even. Continuous. The walls are that deep earth red ochre color, with decorative niches holding bronze lamp fixtures. The light they give is warm-toned. The room is slightly humid. The air smells of olive oil and stone. Your shoulders start to release. The vertebrae that have been stacked against each other for 3 days on the road feel the first hint of loosening. The caldarium. Hot room. A large soaking pool takes up most of the space, steam collecting at the ceiling in shifting, drifting layers. The air is wet. When you come in, your skin immediately starts to bead. A few bathers already. 2 men talking in low voices against the far wall. Another with his head tilted back and eyes closed. An elderly man with both arms resting on the pool's edge, every muscle in his body apparently dissolved. You take the steps slowly. The water climbs your ankles, your knees, your waist, a step at a time, each one requiring a brief pause to let your skin accept the temperature. Olive oil for cleaning. You bought a small vial at the entrance, half a coin. You rub it in, sit on a stone bench in the hot room, and wait for it to lift what 3 days of road have left on you. Then the strigil metal scraping down forearm, down calf, the sound very faint and intimate in the steamed air, mixed with a distant drip and someone somewhere humming something with no particular melody, just the shape of one. You hear, in pieces, about a merchant ship, someone's cargo, or someone's debt. The steam takes the rest of it. The cold plunge at the end is its own kind of violence that you're grateful for. Your skin closes up entirely. Your head goes clear. Walking back into the street afterward, everything looks the same as when you went in, but you're different inside it. The front door is open. In Pompeii, a wealthy household's front door is open by day as a matter of design, not carelessness. Open means, we have something worth showing. Come and see. The entrance corridor forces is narrow. Dark red walls on either side, geometric black and white mosaic underfoot, each tile laid level, the color boundaries sharp. You walk a dozen steps and then the space opens up. The atrium, the heart of the house. The ceiling has an opening directly above the center, calculated to let in the maximum amount of midday light, angled to fall into the impluvium below a shallow stone basin, about 1/2 meter deep, edges curved and polished. Rain water and the daily fresh pour collect in it. Right now, late morning, the light through the ceiling opening falls directly onto the water surface and bounces off it. A slow, rippling reflection crosses the far wall, moving so gradually that you have to look away and look back to notice it's shifted. The frescoes are second-style illusionistic architectural trompe-l'oeil, the walls painted to look deeper than they are. A false window, a painted colonnade. Behind the colonnade, a painted garden. Inside the garden, a painted fountain. Colors that have been sitting in this room long enough to lose their newness and become something else. A deep Pompeian red that's more maroon now. Blues that have gone toward indigo, golds that have darkened to amber. Not old in a diminished sense, old in the sense of having been tested and having held. The peristyle garden is through the atrium. 4 colonnades around a central space, planted with laurel, rosemary, roses, and some tall hollyhocks that have finished blooming and left just the dry stalks. But the laurel and rosemary are still in full color, and the smell between the columns is concentrated, sharp and green and persistent, the kind you can breathe for a long time without getting tired of it. At the bases of the columns, mint grows in small clusters. Someone's foot has clipped a few leaves on the way past. The brief, cold, clean smell releases and fades. In the corner of the garden, the lararium, a small niche cut into the wall, its household gods inside. 2 small ceramic figures holding drinking horns, the lares, the household guardians with the genius of the family between them, carrying grapes, a small offering dish in front, some olives, some dried fruit, a piece of incense already burned down to nothing. The thread of smoke still rising from it thin, bending once in the garden's slight air movement, then gone. Someone prayed here this morning, the master, maybe, or the house manager, or whoever wakes up first and takes the gods seriously. The figures stand in their alcove, holding their horns, watching the garden, watching the impluvium light shift on the far wall. From the direction of the front door, the street sounds come in muffled calls, wheels, a child's laugh trailing off. In here, that sound becomes a background. It's always there but never intrudes. The impluvium water sits still and grey-dark now that the direct light has shifted away, a mirror that has been put away. The bakery is in the southeast quarter of the city, not far from your inn. The second time you pass it, the heat coming out of the oven mouth is thicker than it was at dawn. Second batch, you slow down. The setup is the same in every Pompeian bakery. A street-facing counter, a production room in the back with the millstones, the mixing area, the oven. The millstones are 2 stone cones, upper piece rotating over lower, driven by a donkey in a circle. The donkey has a blindfold on. It goes around and around, hooves on limestone tile in a steady, metronomic beat, wearing its particular groove deeper by another fraction of a millimeter today. The flour falls from between the stones into the collection trough below, gets swept out, sifted, and taken to the kneading table. You watch from the doorway. The donkey completes 3 full rotations. Doesn't slow down, doesn't speed up, doesn't register your presence. Its world is the circle. The baker's name isn't something you know, but you can watch his hands. He tears a portion from the bulk dough, holds it in both palms, pats it, shapes it, rolls it into a round, presses it briefly into a wooden form for consistency, turns it out onto the wooden tray. Over and over. Each round almost identical to the last, but not exactly. Each piece of dough has its own specific tension and moisture, and his palms are constantly compensating, the pressure adjusting by small fractions before he's consciously decided to adjust. This is what 10 or 15 years of a single skill looks like, the correction built into the body, below thought. Before sending them to the oven, he counts. He stands over the loaded tray, lips barely moving, and goes through them. You count along with him, watching his focus track each loaf. He counts 81. 81 loaves go into the oven. The loading gate closes with a scrape of stone on stone, and then a brief wave of escaped heat hits your face. And then it's still. The oven doesn't rumble or glow visibly. It's just there, containing its heat, that silent, patient process of turning grain and water into something else. You buy a loaf from yesterday's batch for a copper coin. It still has some warmth. You guess it went in around midday yesterday, came out by late afternoon, spent the night cooling. Round, about 20 centimeters across, scored into 8 sections for easy portioning. You break off one wedge and bite in. Dense, a faint lactic sourness from the yeast. And then something else, a slight grit against your teeth. Millstone particles, ground off stone dust, mixed into the flour. This happens in every bakery in the Roman world. Pompeii's dentists stay busy for reasons directly related to what you just bit into. The baker has already moved on to prep for the third batch. Afternoon sun at that angle, through the window, slanted and warm. His back is to you. His attention is already somewhere past this moment, into the next measurement, the next weight. The 81 are still in the oven. The Teatro Grande opens toward the south side of the city, near the city wall. Stone rows rising from flat ground into a semicircle, the top tier giving you a line of sight across the rooftops to the sea, and to the north, Vesuvius. The afternoon performance has just ended when you get there. Most of the audience has gone. A few people linger on the stone seats talking. The nut vendor is packing up his remaining stock in practiced movements, pouring the last of them into a cloth, tying the knot without looking. The theatre seats approximately 5,000. For a city of fewer than 20,000, that's almost everyone, and the performances that fill it are often sponsored by wealthy patrons buying political goodwill, meaning the tickets are sometimes free. You find a spot in the middle rows and sit. The stone has been in direct sun for 3 or 4 hours, and the warmth comes up through the back of your legs immediately. A particular kind of lazy-making heat, the kind that sends a slow invitation to just stay there. You press both palms flat against the stone and feel it not sharp, but full, like the ground has been storing something all morning and is quietly distributing it now. The steps are worn smooth and covered in inscriptions, names, numbers, a line of Oscan script near the aisle, letters crooked, possibly a child's handwriting. Pompeii runs on 2 languages at once, Latin in official use, Oscan in the corners and informal spaces, and the layering has been going long enough that most people navigate between them without thinking. The stage is empty. The painted architectural backdrop stands at about 15 meters, 3 doorways for exits and entrances, friezes of mythological figures and vine patterns running along the lintel. The midday to afternoon sun moves across the friezes slowly. You watch the light change the shadow definition on the carved faces. An empty stage has something about it, not absence, exactly. More like capacity, the way a room feels just before people arrive. You sit in the theatre for over an hour. The autumn wind comes through the open arc of the seats, carrying the smell of the city below and something from further out, the dry grass of the Campanian plain, the particular note of the season's end. And under that, something else, very faint, mineral, like stone heated and then slightly fractured. Not unpleasant, not strong enough to place exactly, it makes you breathe in again, trying to identify it. From the top of the theatre, looking north, you can see Vesuvius. The mountain sits against the blue sky, its slopes running down into the city's back gardens and then into the suburban farms, vineyards, olive trees. A few clusters of rooftops, too distant to resolve into houses. And at the summit today, a thread of white, very pale, the kind of thing you'd miss if you weren't looking directly for it. You notice it. You don't dwell on it. Something like a note played slightly out of tune, you register it and move on. A bird passes overhead, its shadow cutting briefly across the stone in front of you and then gone. You lean back, close your eyes, let the afternoon sun sit on your face. The city is very good. The season is very good. This, right now, is enough. The afternoon light is tilting. You leave the theatre and head north, and at a wide intersection where the buildings drop low enough, you stop and look. Vesuvius. Nothing dramatic. You just stopped, the way you might pause in a room when something at the edge of your vision isn't quite right. You look at the mountain, the familiar outline, and then at the top, a thin pale wisp. Against the sky's blue, it might be cloud, might be. You turn your head slightly for a different angle. The wisp is still there, more definite now. An old man comes around the corner. You point up at the mountain, mime the question. He looks, shrugs, says something flat and brief and walks on. His tone says, "Happens sometimes, nothing to worry about." This is standard. You've seen it already in your short time here. A slight tremor in the ground, people pause, register it, go back to whatever they were doing. The ground has been doing this on and off for years. The big earthquake was in 62 AD, 17 years ago. The city spent over a decade repairing. The temple pediment is still not fully fixed, but they repaired and they stayed, because this is where they live. And living somewhere means learning to accommodate its rhythms. You keep walking, you keep looking north. The thread of white holds, doesn't grow, doesn't disappear. The air now has that mineral note you caught briefly in the theatre, more definite here on the open street. Not sulphur exactly, sulphur is sharper, the bite you get from a struck match. This is softer, something adjacent, like rock that's been internally fractured. You could mistake it for the smell of the stone streets themselves, if the streets didn't smell like this every other day without you noticing. You pass a well, lean over and look in. The rope hangs down into darkness. You give it a few feet and feel nothing. The well is dry, or low enough that the rope doesn't reach. You let it go and straighten up. Earlier today, you heard a woman at a street basin complain that her household well went dry yesterday. You didn't think much of it then. Walking on, you become aware of something by its absence. Dogs. This part of the city should have a dog behind every gated doorway, and dogs in Pompeii have opinions about strangers walking past. You've been moving for several minutes without a single bark. You stop and listen. Nothing you can name, just a quality of quiet. A vendor rolling up his mat with end-of-day efficiency. 2 children running through an alley, their laugh trailing and then gone. All the shapes of late afternoon, all the sounds of a city winding toward evening. And inside that frame, something slightly wrong, like a painting where the horizon line is a few degrees off, and you can't find where the error is, only that it exists. The evening is close now. The port runs along the south side of the city, following the Sarno River to its mouth. The channel isn't wide, but it's deep enough for mid-sized commercial ships, and you arrive in the evening just in time to watch one of them preparing to leave. Wooden hull, linen sails still rolled and lashed, coiled ropes on the deck in neat flat spirals. The crew doing their last checks in near silence, no commands, just motion. One of them is crouched at the prow testing rope tension, 2 fingers around each line, field testing and moving on in a single economical gesture. They're heading out tonight, destination unknown to you. Ostia, probably, or somewhere along the North African coast, maybe farther. The river here is a deep green, tinting toward brown near the mouth, the water carrying fine silt from inland. Sunset is behind you, coming from the west, and the light crosses the river surface at a low angle, 1/2 bright, 1/2 shadowed, with the ship's silhouette falling into the shadow half, long and narrow, warping slowly with the water's movement, like something breathing. You find a flat rock on the bank and sit. The crew has the sail deployed now, not fully rigged for open water yet, just spread enough for the harbor exit. One sailor at the mast, head tilted back, checking the rigging. Against the evening light, he's a dark cutout, no face visible. The ship turns slowly south, toward the sea. It picks up speed as the channel deepens, and then it rounds a bend of river reeds, and the mast top is the last thing visible, and then that too is gone. Naples Bay is farther south, broader than the Sarno's mouth suggests. The sunset tonight has turned the whole surface of the bay copper orange, the distant islands silhouetted and still. You can feel the bay more than see it from here, something about the scale of air over open water, the quality of the wind that comes in carrying salt, different from the city's air, carrying a different kind of distance. About 20 kilometers across that water, Misenum, the Roman fleet's Mediterranean headquarters, harbor, and command base. From this bank, the opposite shore is invisible, just the line where the water goes from orange to dark. But it's there, and the fleet is there, and at this hour, a particular admiral has likely finished his day's work and settled down to read. You don't know that yet. Some herons stand motionless in the shallows near you. One has been in the same position since you arrived. A few pieces of straw and a single dead leaf drift slowly downstream. You stay longer than you planned, not for any particular reason, just that particular reluctance to leave a place before you've finished whatever it is you came here to feel. Some unresolved attachment to the smell of the river, the dying light, the going of that ship. Pompeii's last full sunset passes. Walking back into the city, The streets look different in this light. The white plaster walls have gone amber. The grey basalt has gone bronze. The city is warmer than it was this morning. There's wood smoke from somewhere, and the smell of someone's dinner oil and onions and meat drifting down from a second-floor window, sharp and domestic and specifically real. This city, you think, it was worth the walk. You don't sleep well, not because the bed is bad, or because the inn is loud. The second floor's noise insulation is thin, and there are occasional voices from downstairs, and the occasional footstep on the street outside. But the sounds are normal sounds, the kind that stop registering after the third or fourth time. You lie in the dark and replay the day, the market, the forum, the theatre, the baker's back, the herons at the river, and somewhere in the replaying you slide sideways and under. When you open your eyes again, it's still dark, fully dark, deep night dark. The inn is quiet. Quiet enough that you can hear the mule in the stable below making a low, slow sound in its throat, not the feed me call, not the movement before sleep sound. Something more uncertain, shorter and lower, coming from further back in the animal. The kind of sound that doesn't have an obvious cause. You listen. The mule goes quiet. Then the floor moves. Just once. Just slightly. A tremor rising through the stone building's foundation, through the floorboards and the bed's wooden legs, and up into your back. The feeling of something very heavy landing at a great distance, the shockwave arriving late and softened. Your first thought is earthquake. Pompeii has these. The innkeeper mentioned it this morning. Said they've had a few in the last week and everyone's used to it. This one doesn't feel large. The walls aren't shaking. Nothing fools. No one in the street outside calls out. You sit up. Listen to the city. Silence. One dog, somewhere far away, barking twice. Then nothing. The sky in the window is still completely black, but it's a different texture of black than an hour ago. The deepest point of the night is passing. You count 20 breaths. No further movement. You lie back down. And then, just as you're pulling sleep back over you, something else. Not the tremor. Not a sound you'd classify as a sound, exactly. More of a resonance felt through the mattress, through the wood, entering the body directly. A long, low frequency, something operating below the range of clean hearing, felt in the chest and the belly and the lower back rather than the ears. The ground at a great depth, at some specific geological distance, doing something to itself. 5 seconds, maybe less. Then it stops, clean, without decay, as if it was never there. You stare at the dark ceiling for a long time. Nothing. The inn is still. The street is still. The mule has gone quiet again. At some point, the window turns from black to dark grey. You get up, dress, push open the door, walk down the steps, push open the inn's front door into the street. Vesuvius is to the north. It's darker than the sky, but the summit last night it had that thin thread of white. This morning, the white is thicker, more substantial. Different in a way you'd have trouble describing to someone who hadn't seen it yesterday for comparison. As if during the night, while the city slept, the mountain made a small, preliminary decision. The morning streets are thin and pale. The market sounds are starting up from the east, the usual calls and wheels, everything as it should be, except that the air has changed since yesterday. That mineral note is sharper this morning, not strong, but unmistakably present, sitting just behind your nose, the first thing you encounter on a deep breath. You step into the city's rhythm and walk toward the forum. The eruption column rises around midday, not all at once, not with a single explosion. It comes as a slow, sustained push, something enormous, being forced upward with enormous, patient, relentless pressure. First there's smoke, dense and white and grey in layers, volume increasing every time you blink, not spreading outward, but moving up, vertically, like a thing with a destination. A tree growing at wrong speed, its trunk thickening even as you watch it. You're at a wide intersection in the city when it starts. You tilt your head back. At some height, the column loses its vertical momentum and spreads the top flattening and expanding sideways, the canopy of a pine tree at a scale impossible to make sense of. The trunk dense grey, the crown lighter, extending in every direction until it covers a substantial piece of the sky. 30 kilometers high, they'll say later, in another century, when the science exists to measure it. Standing here, with nothing to compare it to, you only know that the scale is wrong. Your eyes try to follow it upward and stop before they get there. Pliny the Younger, a teenager across the bay in Misenum, is watching the same column from his family's roof terrace. In a letter he'll write 25 years from now, he'll describe the shape with the Latin word times pinus times pine tree. That precise description will travel 2,000 years and eventually give this category of eruption its scientific name, Plinian. He doesn't know that yet. He's just looking and reaching for a word accurate enough. Along the street beside you, people are stopping. A woman has pulled her child to her side, both of them looking up. Her expression is still in the gap between times what is this times and times what does this mean times not fear yet, just the suspended moment before interpretation arrives. An old man comes around the corner already looking at the sky, speaking to himself in a low voice, the tone not of alarm but of someone trying to name a thing that doesn't have a name yet. Then the first stone hits your hand, barely a sensation, just a small wrongness on the back of your knuckles. You look down. A pale, grey-white pebble, small and round, sits in the crease between two fingers. You pick it up, roll it in your palm. It's oddly light, lighter than a stone this size should be. Porous, full of tiny holes, the texture of something that was foam before it cooled. Pumice, volcanic glass and trapped gas, shot into the upper atmosphere and beginning its slow return. Another one lands on your shoulder. Then on the street beside you, a faint click that you almost don't hear. Then more. Not a hail of it. Not yet more like the opening notes of something building. Scattered, then less scattered, then arriving steadily enough that standing outside means being struck intermittently on the head, the shoulders, the arms. Not painful, but the instinct to cover yourself is immediate. People start moving toward the covered doorways. Not running, stepping back. Retreating into porticos, looking at each other, looking up, starting to talk. The information travels from person to person, street to street. The sound of the city changes in a few minutes from the morning market noise to something higher, faster, still without a clear direction. The pumice collects on the ground, a thin layer, like the first snow, but greyish, and making no sound when it lands. A boy runs across the street with an open palm, showing the pebbles he's collected to the nearest adult. Curious, excited, not yet afraid. The adult looks at the pebbles, looks up, closes the boy's hand around them gently and walks them both inside. The door closes. Across the bay, in Misenum, there is a 17-year-old boy. His name is Gaius Caecilius Secundus. He is the nephew and adopted son of Gaius Plinius Secundus Pliny, the elder, the scholar, naturalist, and current commander of the Roman fleet. The fleet is anchored at Misenum. The boy is in his uncle's study with a book open on his lap, but not reading it. He is watching the bay. His mother comes to the doorway, then points. They go out to the terrace together. From where they stand, they have a clear view across 20 kilometers of water to the opposite shore. And above the opposite shore, rising from the dark ridge of Vesuvius, a column, white and grey and growing, spreading at the top in that precise lateral fan, the canopy extending in every direction. The boy will write later that he reached for the word times pinus times pine tree, because that's the shape. A great trunk pushing skyward, and then an umbrella crown, distinct and unmistakable. The term times Plinian eruption times will not exist for another 2,000 years. But this is the moment it was earned. He goes to get his uncle. Pliny the Elder comes out, looks at what's happening across the water, and knows. He is a man who has spent his life studying the natural world, annotating everything, classifying everything, and this is either the most significant natural event he will ever witness, or a disaster that people near the source may not survive. Possibly both. He orders a fast galley prepared. Then, thinking of the people on that shore, changes the order. Send a larger ship, one that can carry survivors. The boy stays behind. His mother says she cannot walk quickly and doesn't want to slow anyone down. The boy will record this later, the quiet, practical conversation at the edge of something enormous, the small negotiation over who stays and who goes. He watches his uncle's ship leave the harbor, cross the distance, and become too small to track. He doesn't know, standing there with the book still in his hand, that this is the last time. In Pompeii, the pumice layer is now approaching 2 centimeters. You're standing under a portico, watching the street. The accumulation is thin but continuous. Covering everything evenly, the basalt surface has gone from grey-black to pale grey. A man bends briefly to brush his shoulder clean and keeps walking. A shopkeeper moves methodically through the process of pulling goods back inside from the street display. The sounds the city makes are strange now. Not louder, stranger. Someone crying, somewhere. Nearby, a man speaking very quickly to someone else. From another direction, the ordinary sound of a vendor still conducting business. All of it filtered through the beginning greyness, the edges of things a little less defined. Across the bay, a boy is watching. 25 years from now, he'll write 2 letters. He'll address them to the historian Tacitus, who has asked for details about his uncle's death. The boy Pliny the Younger by then, a respected writer and lawyer, will describe everything. The cloud's shape, his uncle's decision, his own fear, the darkness, the night. The letters will survive. They will become the only eyewitness account of this day that history keeps. He won't know, writing them, that they're the most important primary source document about the eruption of Vesuvius. He'll just be writing because Tacitus asked, and because he remembered. The ship did not come back. Pliny the Elder died on the beach at Stabii, south of here. When the worst had passed, his body was found intact, still looking, some accounts say, like a man resting. He was a naturalist. He died next to the thing he spent his life trying to understand. Whether that's tragedy or something else, there is no good word for it. The boy became Pliny the Younger. He put the letters in the mail to Tacitus. You're reading them 2,000 years later. The pumice is 5 centimeters deep now. You feel it underfoot, that particular compression, the material too light and porous to crunch the way gravel does, instead pressing down with a slight give, a faint grinding. Not stone, not soil, something between. The light has changed completely. The sky above isn't dark yet, but it isn't sky-colored anymore. The eruption column has spread wide enough, at height enough, to filter the direct sunlight down to something ambient and directionless. The illumination that fills the street now comes from everywhere and nowhere, a flat grey-white that casts no shadows. The street looks the way a photograph looks before the exposure is complete. The city is choosing. A family passes you, heading south toward the city gate. 2 adults, 4 parcels divided between them, a small child being carried, another child held by the hand and half running, half being dragged. The adults speak as they walk, fast, functional, not panicking, but done deliberating. They have a destination in mind, a relative's farm outside the city, maybe, or just away from here, toward the coast. Across the street, a shopkeeper is pulling down the iron shutter on his storefront. He does it the way he does it every evening, the practiced movement of someone who has lowered this shutter several thousand times. When it's down, he checks the gap at the bottom, notes the thin drift of pumice that has already found its way in, and turns and goes back into the building. Locks the door. He's made his calculation. His property is here, his family is probably upstairs, and this thing, whatever it is, will probably pass. The shutter has worked against rain and against thieves. He'll give it one more chance. An old woman is sitting at the edge of the street, a few bundles beside her, arranged neatly. No one nearby. She's not getting up. You pass close, and she looks up at you, not afraid, not confused, not asking for anything, just a look. clear and very still, the look of someone who has already finished deciding something, or who has stopped deciding and let it go. Near the Herculaneum Gate, the foot traffic has become a current. No single direction of panic, more like a collective pressure, everyone moving roughly toward the same point of exit, each person's pace carrying its own arithmetic, what they've gone back for, what they're still calculating, how much time they're assigning to this. Walking through it, you feel the particular unreality of being close to many people you've never met, all of whom are at this moment making irreversible choices, and there is nothing you can give any of them, and they can give nothing to you. The pumice keeps coming. The eruption column has taken a significant portion of the upper sky. The light that remains is scattered, refracted, light that has traveled through ash and gas and is arriving used. A torch appears in a doorway. Someone has decided it's dark enough for fire. The flame looks small and orange and strangely domestic against the grey. The city is still standing. It's still here, but it's breathing differently now. You stand near the gate and watch the backs of people disappearing into the grey-white distance. Whatever you're feeling is not a word. It's not fear, not sorrow, not the particular helplessness of watching something be lost. It's all of those, and also none of them. It's the feeling of recognizing, for the first time, that a city is not a place, but a set of ongoing agreements, and that you're watching those agreements end, one by one, while the streets and walls and fountains continue to stand, indifferent to what's being lost. Each door that closes, each person who stays, each person who leaves, together they make something that isn't order and isn't chaos, something without a name, something you can only watch. Night falls early. Not actual night is still an hour or two away. But the sky above the eruption column has gone dark enough that torchlight is necessary in the streets, and the torchlight is doing its best. Each flame throws a small circle of orange into the grey, and beyond that orange, the grey continues in every direction. No depth to it, no horizon visible. You're navigating by memory of where the streets are. The pumice is different now. Not the scattered fall of the early afternoon. This is a steady, blanketing precipitation, the density of a heavy rain without the randomness of rain. Every surface is receiving it continuously. The stone streets, the rooftops, the portico ledges, the balcony railings. In the doorway of a building across from you, a torch is burning. The pumice falls through the torch's light, in, out, small white-grey shapes briefly illuminated, then descending past the flame into the dark below. You watch it for a while. There's something about that movement you can't look away from. The layers are building up. The street in front of the inn now carries a few inches of pumice, some of it loose, some packing into drifts against the bases of walls and door thresholds. Walking through it takes more effort. Each step sinks in a little, has to be extracted. The material is dry, lighter than it looks, but it's dumb weight. It accumulates. Flat rooftops are the first problem. Pompeian rooftops, the common flat terrace design, are built to hold themselves in brief rain loads, not sustain dry deposition. The pumice is light per stone, but there are millions of them arriving by the hour, and they don't run off. They pile. From where you're standing, you hear, from across the street, a low structural sound, then a period of nothing, then a slide of pumice shifting on tile. Nothing collapses. Not yet. But the sound is a sound the building made under duress, and you heard it. Through the general grey noise of it all, pumice on surfaces, the occasional call from somewhere, the muffled quality of voices filtered through ash, you hear a cat. It comes along the wall at the edge of vision, moving fast and low, with that particular purposeful efficiency cats get when they've decided something. It reaches the edge of the torchlight, enters the darkness, and is gone. Cats, apparently, don't need the information to be presented in any particular format. They feel it and they go. You watch the space where it disappeared. The air tastes different now. It's been building all day, but it's definite tonight. Each breath carries something small and mineral and not quite right. You folded your cloth over your mouth and nose, and the world through it is quieter, more removed. The city heard through a filter. You can still hear everything. it's just farther away. From the direction of the forum, you can no longer hear the fountain. You stand for a moment trying to find it that steady, low baseline sound, the one that has been underneath everything since you arrived. Running beneath the market noise, beneath the forum voices, beneath the bathhouse's steam, the water that runs regardless. You can't find it anymore. Not because it's stopped, because the ash and the muffled air have taken it from your hearing. You let it go. You come back inside. The downstairs room has 4 people in it, the innkeeper and 2 travelers who haven't left. The torches are up on the wall, brackets, flames holding steady, because every gap around every door and window has been stuffed tight with cloth. The innkeeper did it methodically, working the corners, pressing the material into the frame edges, doing it well. Every time someone opens the front door, a visible amount of material drifts in. Getting the door open requires shouldering it, moving quickly, and getting it closed again fast, which everyone has learned after a few rounds. Nobody talks much. The innkeeper sits in his corner. His eyes travel to the door, to the floor, to some middle distance point that doesn't correspond to anything in the room, not vacant measuring. Running something. The older traveler hasn't moved from his position in 2 hours, both hands on his knees, posture that's beyond calm into something more like suspension. The younger one has made a few trips to the door, looked out each time, come back with the same report. Still coming down. Outside, the sounds are heavy and layered, pumice hitting the roof tile in that soft, continuous drumming. Occasionally, something heavier, a structural shift somewhere across the street, possibly a section of tile dislodging under load, the impact into the accumulated pumice below as a dense, flat thud. No one interprets these sounds aloud. You close your eyes. The temperature in the room has been dropping, not from cold, but from the ash outside having sealed off all the warmth of the day. The air feels compressed, not thin, not stale, but heavy. The way air feels when it's been held in a space and has taken on the weight of the space. Still, dense, present. The torch on the near wall casts your shadow large against the plaster behind you. When the flame moves, the shadow moves slightly after it, with a delay that makes it seem like the shadow has its own pace, its own slow version of you. The mule in the stable below makes a sound. One low, brief note, then silence. Deep in the night, the young traveler says something voiced low, not looking up. How long ago did the others leave? Nobody answers, not because they don't care. Because the answer doesn't change anything, and because there's something specific about this moment, these 4 people in this room, that makes speaking feel like a small violation of something fragile. From the door crack where the cloth has been wedged, but not perfectly, a thin drift of pumice dust sifts through, barely visible, slowly settling, landing on the floor, joining the thin coat of grey that has been accumulating there by this same method for hours. The torch has been burning for a long time, not much oil left. You don't try to sleep. You let your eyes close and let the sounds inside them pumice on the roof tile, the mules breathing below, the slight movement of the building come and go. Not thinking about anything, not trying not to think. Just here, in this room, in this city, in this last darkness that is and will always be the last darkness Pompeii ever had. You stay there until the torch goes out. Dawn doesn't come. Or it might have, there's no way to know from inside the inn. No light gets through any gap. The ash and pumice layer outside have reached the thickness where they've become their own illumination system. None. The world outside is operating in a separate darkness from night, a darkness with weight. The innkeeper goes to the door. He's gone about 2 minutes. Comes back with grey across his shoulders and in his eyebrows. Closes the door, replaces the cloth, packing in the gap, and says, "Pumice to the knee level on the street." The road is knee-deep. In the waiting, you start to move through the city in your mind. The bakery. The oven gate closed around midday. 81 loaves, counted by hand. By now, they would have long since passed their point. The baker, where did he go? Did he leave, or is he somewhere in that building, in a back room, waiting? The oven itself would still be cooling. Pumice stones falling through the vent shaft, mixing with the wood ash inside. The bread would be sealed in, not eaten, just there. The mansion's atrium, the impluvium that caught the light and threw it slowly across the far wall all morning. It's full now. Pumice to the brim, the water buried underneath. The afternoon light game is over. In the lararium corner, the two small Lars still stand in their alcove, still holding their cups in that ceramic gesture, a coating of white on their shoulders, evenly distributed, like something delicate placed over them while they slept. The bathhouse. Stabi and thermae. Is the water still hot in the caldarium? Is the system still running? The man who had his arms resting on the pool edge, eyes closed, every muscle dissolved, where is he? Did he make it out in time? The market. The cured olive jars with their cloth covers, the pomegranate vendors' red-stained hands, empty now. Those jars sitting under pumice accumulation, the rough cloth covers pressed flat against the lids by weight, the pomegranates on the display table, their vivid red skin now a pale white, uniformly covered. If you didn't know what they were, you might think it was a strange variety. The forum fountain, running or stopped. The water doesn't know about eruptions. The pipes may still be carrying water from the Aqua Augusta at this very moment, filling the basin, overflowing the edge, running into the drainage channel under the pumice, going somewhere useful, with no one to receive it. All these places still exist. All of them, right now, in various states of the same thing, stopped. Not the sudden stop of an impact, but the slow burial, layer after layer, the way a sentence gets quieter as it gets longer, until the last few words are barely heard. On the table in the inn's downstairs room, last night's dinner dishes, a ceramic bowl with a small amount of wine still in it. A fine grey film across the surface of the wine, laid there by the dust that sifted through the door gaps over the hours. The wine's surface no longer reflects the torchlight. It's become opaque. The bowl is still waiting to be cleared. It's going to wait for a while. Then the pumice stops. Not all sound stops, just that one. The specific sound of pumice landing on the roof tile. That continuous, even drumming that has been running for 10 or 12 hours without interruption. It stops. Clean. No transition period. No thinning out. Just present, then absent. Everyone in the room registers it. The silence left behind is louder than the sound was. That's the strangest part. After 10 hours of noise, the sudden removal of that noise creates an absence that seems to have its own presence, the shape of a sound, still there after the sound has gone. You're aware of your own breathing in a way you weren't before. The young traveller goes to the door and looks out. He comes back with a different expression than he's worn all night, not relief, not fear, but something more disorienting. The expression of a rule having changed, a pattern interrupted, no new pattern offered yet to replace it. Outside the room, outside the inn, outside the city, a different quality of stillness. Not Pompeii at night still, not the bathhouse steam still. Something earlier and more fundamental, the feeling of a large thing holding its breath, the silence of an intake before the exhale. The eruption column above Vesuvius has been doing something for a while, something that doesn't transmit visually from inside a sealed room. The column is collapsing. The eruption has been pushing hundreds of millions of tons of material into the atmosphere, and the column has reached the point where it can no longer hold its own weight. The heated gas and rock mixture that kept it vertical is cooling. The column is beginning to fall inward, and what had been rising 30 kilometers straight up is now beginning to pour back down along the mountain's slopes. Pyroclastic surge. Superheated gas, ash, and rock moving down the mountainside at wind speed, at several hundred degrees. It will reach the city faster than a person can run. It's not here yet. In 1863, a man named Giuseppe Fiorelli had an idea. The excavations of Pompeii had been running on and off for over a century by then, slowly uncovering the buried city. Fiorelli was looking at a cavity in the hardened ash, a hollow space, human-shaped. The organic material inside had long since decomposed, leaving a perfect mold in the compacted pyroclastic deposit. He thought, if I pour liquid plaster into that cavity and let it harden, I can pull the ash away and see what was inside. He was right. What came out was a man, lying on his side, his face buried in his arms, the posture of someone curled against something unavoidable. Then a woman, face down, arms extended ahead of her, hands open, reaching towards something she didn't reach. Then a child, knees pulled tight to the chest, the universal human gesture of trying to be smaller, trying to take up less of a world that is pressing in. Then a man lying on his back, one arm raised above him, the hand open, palm up, fingers spread. He was still in that posture, sealed into it, first by the ash, then by Fiorelli's plaster, then preserved across 2,000 years to the museum display case where you stand in front of him now. You look at the raised hand for a long time, not just a cast anymore, not just a photograph of an ending, something older and less categorizable than that, the gesture of a person at the point of limit, still moving, still reaching, still making an argument with the physical world in the only language left, a palm open to something, refusing to stop the gesture. The ash arrived and interrupted it, and the interruption became the record, and the record became a form of continuation. That hand has been open for 2,000 years. In Pompeii, the last people inside their last rooms are waiting for whatever sound comes next. The city is as still as it has ever been. The mountain has made its decision. Dawn is not coming, not today. You're standing at the inn door, the door open just enough to be in it. Outside, the accumulated ash and pumice reaches to mid-shin. The darkness is the particular kind that belongs to things sealed, not night darkness, not room darkness, but the darkness of a city that has been covered and is not receiving light from any direction. The air around your boots, settling into the gaps between ash grains. Still, dry. Heavy in a way that makes itself felt only on the exhale. The barometric pressure has changed. You feel it in your ears, a subtle, sustained pressure, the feeling of being in a high place or a low place, but you're standing at street level. Something large is moving in the atmosphere above. The mountain, behind the dark, is doing what it has been preparing to do. Walk through it one more time. The forum, the long white limestone floor, the colonnade rose, the afternoon echo that held everyone's footsteps together. All of that, right now, under a uniform white layer. The Jupiter temple pediment that crack, the old earthquake, the lime plaster repair now filled in completely by the ash. The crack that the 62 AD earthquake left is gone, sealed, as though it never was. The bakery, the oven, the 81 loaves, still inside, now stopped in whatever transformation the cooling oven has left them in, preserved in the sealed chamber. The bathhouse, the hot room's water, the slow reflection of lamplight in the Caldarian pool, the old man's arms resting on the pool edge, the forum fountain, the water coming from the mountain, moving through the Aqua Augusta, arriving still maybe at the distribution tower, still being pushed by gravity through miles of lead pipe, arriving at the street corner basins, still running, for no one, in the dark, the mansion's peristyle, the laurel trees, the mint at the base of the colonnades, the impluvium in the atrium, completely buried. The lares in their alcove with their ceramic cups raised, standing in the grey, waiting to bless a household that has left. The theatre, the empty stage, the stone seats warm from the afternoon sun you sat in, the bird's shadow that crossed the steps and disappeared. These places are all still here. They will be here for 17 centuries, through the long, slow settling and hardening of the pyroclastic deposit, through the gradual covering by new soil, through the growth of a small town on top of the buried city, through the gradual forgetting, and then the shovels, and then the brushes, and then the voices of the people who find them, standing in a trench, recognizing a bakery counter, a bread oven, a wheel rut in a stone street, recognizing the shape of an ordinary morning. The city didn't end. It stopped. The difference matters. It stopped so thoroughly that the 81 loaves outlines were kept. The raised arm's angle of extension was kept. The wheel ruts you walked in on the way through the Herculaneum gate this morning are the same wheel ruts that people will walk in 2,000 years from now, because the city stopped before anything had the chance to change. Stopped, and therefore kept. In Misenum, Pliny the Younger is still at the terrace. His uncle's ship disappeared into the direction of the column hours ago. 25 years from now, the historian Tacitus will write to him, asking for details. Pliny will sit down and remember. He'll describe the column's shape in detail times like a pine tree. He'll say, which will turn out to be the most accurate description of that class of eruption available for 1800 years. He'll describe his uncle's decision to go toward the disaster. He'll describe staying behind, the darkness, the stones falling, the ground shaking, the strange silence that fell before the worst came. He'll describe walking out into daylight afterwards and finding everything covered in a fine white ash, like snow, but not snow. 2 letters, sent to a historian, kept by someone, copied, passed on, kept again, arriving, still legible, across 2,000 years. In Pompeii, the last sounds are these: the ash, still, the pumice no longer falling. Somewhere, a dog, 1 bark, then nothing. At a doorway somewhere in the city, a figure raises a hand, and everything goes very quiet, in the way that means the quiet will last. The hand is open, the fingers are spread. 2,000 years later, it's still there. In a museum case, in plaster, surrounded by silence and glass, reaching toward nothing, reaching toward everything, right at the line between what was